everyone, and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Friday. It is June 4th, 2021, and this is episode 183. My name's Carol. I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I live not too far from Vancouver, British Columbia. How's everyone doing? I hope you've had a good week. I realized after recording last episode that I had forgotten to wish all of my American friends a good Memorial Day weekend. So I hope it was good. Our own May long weekend, the Victoria Day weekend, which takes place a week prior to Memorial Day, was kind of a bust this year, and I don't think I even referenced it last week. Normally we would go up to the cabin that weekend, but this year we have travel restrictions in place, and we are not allowed to travel outside of our designated health regions for non-essential reasons. And I guess understandably hanging out at the cabin is not seen as essential. So this year I was at home alone and Cameron was out of town working, so it didn't seem like much of a holiday this year. We are all waiting with bated breath for June 15th. That is when we will find out whether those restrictions will be eased or not. It will depend on the number of COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations and the number of people who have received their first vaccine. So happily, our case number has dropped considerably, and several days this week we've had under 200 cases per day, which is the lowest it's been since the fall. So that's good news. And our vaccines, both first and second shots, do continue to rise. So I won't be too surprised to see those restrictions eased then. I just can't wait to be allowed to just feel a little freer again. Speaking of vaccinations, I received an email this morning to say that as of next week, I will be eligible for my second shot. But I have a bit of a dilemma. Since I had the AstraZeneca for my first shot, I have the option of receiving that again for my second shot, or choosing one of the mRNA vaccines like Pfizer or Moderna for my second shot. And it's a tough decision because there are pros and cons to both. There does seem to be some convincing evidence that combining the shots is very effective. On the other hand, apparently if you had the AstraZeneca for your first and get like a Pfizer for your second, or Moderna, that apparently you have a chance of having worse side effects with your second shot. It might just come down to whichever is available to me first. Just with the way they're distributing them here in BC, I'm going to be contacted by the pharmacy where I received my first shot, and otherwise I will be contacted by, I guess, the government for one of the other kind. So it might just depend on what is available to me first. I just can't wait to start hugging all the people that I love. My mom is set, I think it's the 11th. It's very soon anyway. They'll have another clinic in the small town where she lives, and she'll be able to get her second shot then. So certainly by the beginning of summer we will both be fully vaccinated, or should be, and yeah, can't wait. I was talking to her today and just telling her that I just can't wait to just hug her and not let her go. Same for the grandkids. So I was really of two minds whether or not I was going to end up recording this afternoon. I had planned to all week, and then things just worked out so that I had several errands I had to run today. So I'm sitting down to do this much later than usual. I think it's after 4 o'clock. And I don't really like to do that because then all the editing and uploading and stuff, it carries over later into the evening than I generally like. On the other hand, I'd dressed up a little bit and put on some makeup to go out to do my errands. So I thought, why not? So I threw on some lipstick. That's one thing my friend said early on. She said, we're going to save a lot on lipstick this year because everyone's walking around in masks. No one can see if you have it on. So yeah, put on a little lipstick for you. I just gathered all my things. I don't have any show notes for myself. And so I'm going to be winging it a little bit, but when I sort of weighed whether to record today or possibly not until next week, I decided to just go for it. So forgive the loosey-goosey nature of this episode. Hopefully next week I'll be better prepared. I do have a finished project to share with you. These are the Spinifex shot, no, not shots. We've been talking about shots. Spinifex socks by Helen Stewart. They really do kind of blend into the background, don't they? It's not easy being green in this room. Yes, the Spinifex socks are the fourth pattern or third pattern? Fourth pattern. I think you're all saying it doesn't matter, Carol, and I know it doesn't, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the fourth pattern from the fourth Handmade Sock Society by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. So these are unlike any other Helen Stewart sock I've knit before in that they were constructed from the toe up. And so they feature these columns of just twisted stitches, and then in between those twisted stitches is this, I think they call it a star stitch pattern that runs up to the front of the leg and the foot. When I first began knitting these socks, I wasn't really happy with how nondescript this stitch pattern was, and then shortly after that, there was an update to the pattern that said if you wanted this stitch to be a little bit more defined, you could knit those 3 stitches on the following row if you wanted to, instead of purling them, and that's what I chose to do. So you definitely do see them more than in my first attempt. So this is a toe-up sock with a gusset, so you can see the gusset increases there, and then a slip stitch heel and a twisted rib cuff. I knit these from Elan A Series F05, which is just such an inventive name. As you can see, it's 75 superwash wool, 25% nylon blend, and this was color 23. And last week I thought it was just plain old color 23, but apparently it does have a color name, and that is Willow, which I think is a rather a good name for it. I really do love the shade of green. As I mentioned before, though, the yarn is pretty unremarkable. It's just a good old workhorse, wool nylon blend, but there's not any real depth to the dyeing or much interest to it, other than it is a pretty color. Having said that, I do think it shows off the stitch pattern well, and maybe better than my original choice, which I ended up abandoning because I didn't like the way one of the colors was pooling. So all in all, I am happy with these socks. They do fit very well, and I think they're a nice, classic, easy to wear design. So I had a viewer ask me about whether I preferred toe up or top down socks. So I thought I would just take a minute and talk about that a little bit. Way back when I first started recording, I started a little mini series on socks, and I know I talked about cuffs and heels, and I never did get around to toes, I don't think. But as far as sort of the pros and cons of top down versus toe up, I just prefer the construction methods of top down. I prefer to cast on for a cuff rather than a toe, even though I can do both, easily. I've mastered the cast on for toe up. I do Judy's Magic cast on. I know I've also had a number of viewers saying that they struggle with the cast on. It's definitely something you have to do a little bit to get used to, and even now sometimes it takes me a few attempts to get it right, but I don't mind it so much as when I first started. I think the first one I started with was one that you wrap around your needles and knit into the back of the stitch or something. I can't even remember. It's been so long ago. Once I learned Judy's Magic cast on, I never went back. And I prefer when it comes I prefer to work the leg first, because I like that I can choose where to start my heel. Depending on if it's a striped yarn, I can decide which stripe I want this heel to begin in, whether it's splitting a stripe, as I often do if I'm going to do an afterthought or a short row heel, or even a slip stitch traditional heel flap and gusset. Sometimes I'll split the stripe with that too. Or if you have a stitch pattern that you want to end at a certain point before you begin the heel, you have more freedom for those kinds of things than when you do toe up, because when you do toe up, you have to start those things according to your foot measurement, and so it's more limiting, so you don't have those same options. I also prefer, if I'm doing a traditional heel flap and gusset, I prefer getting to this point and then decreasing my gusset stitches rather than getting here and then increasing for what seems like forever to get all your gusset stitches here. I do like on the top sock of this type of design with the traditional heel flap and gusset, I do like the fact that where your heel flap joins, it's a really nice finish. There's no gap whatsoever there, where even when I do what I consider to be a good job with my top-down socks, there's always a little bit of just never 100% perfect where this meets. Not enough to make me stop doing them, and not enough that people would necessarily notice, but that is one thing that I made note of, especially because I haven't knit a heel flap and gusset toe up sock for a long time, and I just finished that and I went, wow, that is just such a nice join there. So honestly, and another thing I like about top down socks is that when you get to a certain point, like you can, especially because I knit with magic loops, so it's very easy to try on my socks as I go. You can very easily try on your sock and figure out if it's the right time for the toe or not. Where when you knit up toe up socks, you have to be very specific about your measurements and know exactly where you either have to start the gusset or insert your either afterthought or short row heel. So, some people swear by toe up, some people swear by top down. I'm happy that I know how to do both, because I use both for different occasions. One thing toe up is great for is if you have a limited amount of yarn. For instance, my brother-in-law has wide feet, fairly long, and I'm always a little bit nervous about starting here, and I have actually gotten to do the toe and had to substitute in other yarn. So when you do a top sock, you can just knit until you run out of yarn, and you know you never will run out of yarn. Um, just again, pros and cons for each, and I know that I'm really happy to have both knowledge and experience now of both. That I don't shy away from a pattern because it's toe up. I feel like I can knit anything. The other thing is just thinking about it is as a designer, you will find that there are some stitch patterns that you can only do one way or the other. So for instance, on the Downton Abbey socks that I've been designing, that parasol stitch pattern that I incorporated into one of my pairs, I am not sure if I could do that stitch pattern from the top down. Possibly some you can manipulate to have them run either way, others it's not that simple. So but that would just be that's not really a limitation on one or the other. It's just that is something to take into consideration when you're designing, is whether your stitch pattern looks better toe up or top down. So I hope that kind of covered the answer to your question, and maybe others have been wondering too. So now you know. Top down's my favorite, but I don't mind doing a toe up. So what else do I have here? I don't even have notes, but I'm looking at last week's notes, except that I do have a project I'm going to talk about that's not there. Yeah, my Blue Jay socks. That's next up. They're here in my Stock Your Sock drawer bag I got at Tolt Yarn and Wool down in Carnation, Washington. I get emails from them, and sometimes I see something like, oh, we should go take a drive down to the States. And it's like, oh yeah, we can't even if we want to. The border's still closed. So I do look forward to when going down to the States is not such a big deal, because we live very close to the US border, and normally it's really not a big deal to go down for the day or, a weekend or something. So Blue Jay socks. This is the second installment of the Backyard Birdwatchers Club by Fiber Nymph Dye Works, and it is on the bedazzled base. So Blue Jay was the featured bird for the second installment, and then it came with a coordinating skein. You can really see the sparkles on that one. So I have reached the point on both socks where I'm ready for the heels, and there they sit. Maybe I'll slip these onto sock blockers just to display them maybe a little more nicely. Although I can already tell I'm going to have probably yarn tangled all over the place. Oh well. There they go. So I do like quite a long cuff when I do a sock like this, where I'm going to do a complementary short row heel. I like to knit 8 inches before I insert that heel. And so this time, rather than split the stripe, oh no, I did decide to split the stripe. That's right. I'm going to put, because the heel is going to land basically in the middle of this striping sequence. So I have knit half the blue stripe, then I will insert my heel, and then I'll knit the second half of the blue stripe and carry on. So Oops, that's caught on my shirt. Yeah, so these are top down, as you can tell. 64 stitch on a 2mm needle, which is my go-to plain stockinette sock. So yeah, coming along, enjoying those. Haven't worked on them since I got to this point. Well, that's obvious, isn't it? What I mean is the next step is not mindless. I have to do the heels, and so it hasn't been the project I've reached for when I just need some mindless knitting once I got to that point. So hopefully I will pick those up again very soon, because once I do the heels, then they once again become kind of a mindless project until it's time to do the toes. Looking at my hair, I really need a trim. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I guess I need to make an appointment. That would help. And then another Helen Stewart project. This is the first pattern from the 5th Shawl Society. Pretty sure it's the 5th one. It's called the Curling Mist Shawl. I don't have a picture of it here, but you'll see from my project what it looks like, because I just carry on with those stripes as set. So I am knitting it out of these 2 yarns. This one is by Sweet Fiber. That is the super sweet sock in the Mountainscape colorway, which is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon blend. And then this is also the same blend, and it's by Sweet Georgia Yarns. Both of them Vancouver area dyers. And this color is Alpine. And this was a sock blank that I unraveled and washed to get most of the kink out. And so my still working on the outside, which is still the light color. So I'm curious to see how they're going to look together once we get to this middle part. But certainly in the vast majority of lights, they look very good together. So I'm optimistic. So I have done a fair bit. I think I'm at, I want to say either 40 or 40% of the way through. My next stripe is just a plain garter stitch one. I just haven't worked on this for a few days either. But here we go. So it looks so far. So I have put it on a longer needle than the last time I showed it to you. And yeah, I like the way it's knitting up. As you can see, as I mentioned, these garter sections are done in the sock blank, and I still don't see any shading, or it's not getting darker yet. It's all pretty much the same shade, so I'll be curious to see what happens once the little bit of darker yarn comes in. I'm not convinced the lighting's the greatest today looking on the screen. I apologize. Not that I can really help it. It is what it is. It's kind of an overcast day, and it's breezy out, and the sun came out for a little while. It was a little bit bright, and then it's gone back behind the clouds. So, and plus it's later in the afternoon, so not the best lighting. I am not sure how well, like I feel like things are getting blown out. I don't know how well you can tell, and I tried to show it last week too. There's such depth to this yarn. There are so many different colors. Maybe there it's a little bit better. You can see there's kind of a green area and blues, purples. It is so beautiful. I just am loving working with it. There seems to be pooling slightly, but it's not so much that it's, annoying, because I'm not a big fan of pooling as a rule. But you can see how it's different parts of it are definitely knitting up a little bit differently than they did to start with. But overall, I think the effect's good, and I'm happy with it. So that's what counts. oh no, that's not it for knitting. I have one more project that I've been kind of fiddling around with, and I haven't really settled on what yarn I'm going to use for it. This is my old Ravelry bag. I've had this one for ages, and of course now they have the new logo and new look. I must confess, I thought it was fine the way it was, and I'm not really thrilled with the new look, but you know, now that I hung on to the old one as long as I could, and now that I'm sort of forced to use the new one, you know, it's fine, but I really I liked the old look better. Maybe just because it was familiar, I don't know. I just find it honestly more appealing. Hopefully this isn't too hot. It's pretty hot still, but have a little sip there. Okay, so my final project that I've been working on, there are no Downton Abbey socks to show you. I haven't touched them this week. Just haven't been in that frame of mind. I just finding my days are disappearing, and what knitting I have been doing, I don't want to think about very much. So I had finished, I think it was, let me just think for a second. Today's Friday. So Wednesday, maybe it was between Tuesday and Wednesday, I made a concerted effort to finish up the Spinifex socks, just because I was just kind of ready to be done with them. And so when I got up Thursday, I just had a few rows to do on the cuff of the second sock. And I had finished the first sock, I think the night before, because I kind of knit them concurrently on 2 needles. And I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, but surprised nonetheless, to find the next pattern for the Handmade Sock Society in my inbox. For some reason, I was thinking I was about a week ahead of things, and in fact, I finished the second sock the day the next pattern came out. So I finished the rest of that pair up yesterday as quickly as I could, and then I went stash diving for this pair, which I think is really pretty. It's called Lavender Fields, and other than the fact that it's a shorter sock, I think it's really pretty. I will be knitting them longer. I just don't care for a short sock unless it's going to be like a total ankle sock, which I do have a pair of those that sometimes I wear to bed, but as a rule I like my socks just to be higher. So these are really interesting because they don't have ribbing. You do this picot, I think it's a picot cast on, and a little bit of garter stitch and a little bit of stockinette, and then you go into this lace pattern, and then they're plain for the rest of the sock, although it does have an eye of partridge heel. So it's always the dilemma, what yarn do you use? And so I went stash diving and came up with a few skills. I'm just going to move this over closer. So I'll be honest, my first choice is this yarn. I think it will be perfect. You're thinking, well, why aren't you using it? And the reason I'm resisting is because I have this yarn set aside for a different project. I have a colorwork sweater that I started last year, and I ripped it back out again, but this is by Sweet Fiber too. This is the Cashmerino 20 base. So that is 70% superwash merino, 20% cashmere, 10% nylon, and it's the Hippolyta colorway. Anyway, I have this set aside to use in a colorwork sweater, and I don't need all of it, but I don't know how much I would have left after I knit these socks and whether it would be enough for the sweater. So I'm kind of resisting breaking into the skein. Having said that, my other choices haven't been working out so well. And I have a feeling that I'm inevitably going to go for that. Keeping in mind that sweet fiber is still dying, and chances are I can get more of this. And actually, the rest of the sweater is in the super sweet sock base. So actually, it would make sense to try and get some of this colorway in a different base anyway. So I have a feeling that's what's gonna end up happening. But I'll just show you what my choices and what I've been kind of pondering. So my first thing that I picked out, but the second thing that I actually tried was this yarn. And this is the color of the lavender that is in my garden. It's the perfect color. The downside is it's another one like the Elan yarn that I just used for my Spinifex socks. It's just like a wool nylon blend. It's from Fildar. It's DGB Confetti. Sorry, I hadn't undone it. DGB Confetti. It is 75-25 wool nylon. And so again, it doesn't have that nice, smooth and beautiful tonal depth to it that this yarn does. I mean, look how beautiful that is. It's just this flat purple yarn that's slightly rustic and not very inspiring. And while it's a really pretty color, and there's nothing wrong with it, I'm not sure. You'll notice I haven't ripped it out. Seeing it actually on the screen, I like it better than I do in real life. So maybe it's worth continuing for that reason alone, and seeing it in the light and just seeing it in a different light makes me think it's not so bad after all. You can see the top is curling, and I'm hoping that that's something that once it's done and blocked, that it will behave itself, because that's kind of annoying. I'm just about finished the lace pattern, and then I'll just be stocking it for the rest of it. So yeah, I'm glad I did see it in there, because I really do love the idea that it's the color of my lavender. Because just looking at photos, lavender does come in different shades, but mine's definitely this dark bluey purple. Glad I saw it on there, because I think that will definitely influence whether I keep going. Another yarn I did try was this Knit Picks Stroll Sport. This is the Clematis colorway, so wrong flower, but again has nice tonal purples and blues, a little bit of green in there. The downside of this yarn is that it is a sport weight, and I just didn't think it looked as dainty, I guess, in the heavier weight yarn. So it doesn't look too bad, but I don't like the way it feels. It's very thick, and I just feel like this pattern needs something just a little bit lighter and daintier. So I'm definitely taking these out. I just thought I would show you my thought process and color choice there. A couple of other skeins. I pulled out this one just because it had some lavender type colors in there, but I think it's too busy. This is really pretty though. I can't wait to try it. Also, this is just a superwash merino, no nylon. It's from Tempted. It's my only skein of Tempted yarn in the frigid, I think, yeah, frigid colorway. So I'm gonna save that probably for a shawl or cowl, or something that you're not walking on. And then I thought this was kind of neat because it was like lavender colors with the green. I thought, well, that could look like a field of lavender. Again, though, it is, even though it's called it's by Mama Llama, and even though it's called Favorite Sock, again, it's just a superwash merino. and it's only a 2-ply, and it's not tight like I know Blue Moon Fiber Arts is just a 2-ply, or just a nylon. Come on, Carol. It's just a wool that doesn't have nylon in it, but it's a really high twist. Where this is just doesn't seem to have that same strength. Although I realized I did knit a pair of socks out of it before, so it couldn't have bothered me that much then. And it is labeled favorite sock. Anyway, that was sort of the next thing I was going to try after this if I didn't like it. But like I say, the more I'm looking at that, the more I am liking it. So I think I'm going to carry on with that. I guess next week you'll find out what I've decided. This was from a color co-op club that I was part of with Mama Llama, the Unique Sheep, it's on the tip of my tongue. Another yarn company, Dragonfly Fibers. I think that was it. And people would submit a photograph, and then the different dyers would each dye up their interpretation, and then it would vary who you got your shipment from. So you didn't always get the one you might have liked the most, but then you had an opportunity to order it also if you wanted. So this was called Shade Garden. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with those. I'm not 100% satisfied, and so not motivated to work on them a whole lot, although I have. I only got the pattern yesterday, but that's what I've been concentrating on. But I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. Oh, I've got something over here to show you. So, a long time ago, I think it was maybe back in March, I told you I had bought myself a paint by number, and I said I wasn't going to show it to you till it kind of looked like something, and then I never did show it to you. So this was the picture that came with it, and I finished it the other day. So let's see if I can get it all in the shot. Yeah. So I have no illusions about it being anything but a paint by number picture. It is not fine art. It is not necessarily well done, but it was fun to do and relaxing, and just sort of scratched another creative itch. And again, actually on screen looks better than real life. So maybe that's my secret. I just need to live life on screen, and then I'll be happy with everything. I snapped a picture of it, showed it to my family, and they've agreed that yes, it's worthy of going to the cabin. So I'm going to get an inexpensive frame and take it up there, and we'll find a home for it. We kind of always joke about it because all of our, not all of our, some of our art projects from school and brownies and stuff have ended up at the cabin, and there they stay, and some are definitely better than others, but none are particularly wonderful. And so I was joking, I don't know if I said this before to you guys, but I just think of it as where bad art goes to die. So they thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, yeah, I'm actually pretty pleased with how that turned out, and it definitely was fun. I did everything, and then I did the white on the chair last and the flowers, but I also left like the fun colors for last. So I did all the background stuff, and then I started filling in like the red and the yellow and the orange and the green and the blue. And I enjoyed it so much that I went ahead and ordered another kit. And again, this will be bound for the cabin. So I chose a picture I thought would suit up there, and it's of this boat floating in the lake, pulled up into a bay. And so all I've done so far is like this black area down here. So a couple areas, couple large areas of black, and then a few little ones. So definitely not worth showing that to you, but um, yeah, I'm just gonna carry on. Why not? It is, like I say, it just scratches a different itch and is relaxing and enjoyable. I just have to be careful not to work on it for too long, because then I end up feeling a little nauseous and headachy, kind of like motion sickness. So I try to limit myself to about an hour at a time. It's just that spread out on our kitchen table, and I can sit down. Usually I do it in the sort of mid to late afternoon, because that seems to get the best light. I think that's it for projects, and I don't even think there's much sort of news to tell you other than Cameron is still away. The person who was applying for the manager position has accepted. Now the trick is to find accommodation, rentals, and homes to buy are few and far between up there, and so she's having trouble finding something permanent. The company will put her up in a hotel for a while, but she needs to know that she's got somewhere affordable to live once once that kind of runs out. So that's sort of the hurdle they're going through now. So yeah, and then Cameron hurt his left hand. He is left-handed, and he hurt his hand yesterday at work. Guess he was at a funny angle unloading a truck and picked something up, and it was heavier than he'd realized, and he pulled a tendon or something like that. So he has seen the doctor, and he's got a brace on it, and just has to, it's not really serious. He just can treat it with like you know Tylenol and ibuprofen, and just try to try to limit the use as much as he can, which is difficult because it is his dominant hand, and just try not to overdo it. So hopefully it won't take too long to heal. The doctor estimates about 4 weeks, so we'll see. All right, so I think that's everything I wanted to talk to you about this week, except of course for something good. My something good is that 34 years ago today, I gave birth to our first son, our second child, Matthew. And he was just such an easy baby to look after. After what was a relatively easy birth, as far as these things go, he slept through the night the first day he was born. And so I was able to start my mothering of him very well rested and a good frame of mind. And he was just so mellow. I called him my angel baby because he was just so undemanding. He would literally wake up in the morning, making a few little squawks. And it was almost like, whenever you're ready, can you come and get me and feed me? And so I would get up, I would go and give our daughter like a little thing of Cheerios in her crib. I'd go hop in the shower, get her dressed, get her set up with breakfast, and then I would go get him out of the crib to take care of him. He would just lie there, look around, make a few noises. He was just so content, so mellow. He'd probably hate me telling you that, but he doesn't watch, so he doesn't know. And that personality kind of has followed him through life. I think personalities often are revealed quite early on in our lives. And not to say he can't get mad, because he can, but in general, he's pretty mellow, pretty gentle personality. So yeah, so happy birthday to Matthew. I guess he and Stephanie are going out for dinner tonight. Now that our restaurants are open again for indoor dining, so they're having Mexican. So that really is it then. So I will leave it there. Thank you, as always, for watching, and thank you for all of the messages that you and comments that you sent me this past week. I always appreciate hearing from you, and try to get back in a fairly timely manner. I usually wait a few days and then kind of sit down and do them all at once. So yes, thank you for reaching out and saying hello. I hope you have a good week. It's Friday, so I hope you have a good weekend. Mine, I have no real plans other than there are a couple of jobs that I really want to tackle in the next few days. So I'm going to see how much motivation I have for that. So the weather is turning. We actually had some really hot days this week, hot and humid, quite uncomfortable, but it's cooled down. Today's been overcast, it's breezy, and apparently some rain is on the way. So it'll be a good motivation to stay inside and get some not so fun jobs done. Anyway, that's a much longer, I was going to say, intro. I don't know what that means. Exit that I planned. On that note, bye. Hope to see you again soon.